I'd like to speak today about the period between Shivaasarbetamuz and Tisha B'Av, referred to as Bein HaMitzarim, and I'd like to focus on understanding the Chesed in the Chorban. Perek Ayin Tet of Tehillim begins with the parak that details the death and destruction of the Chorban, begins with puzzling words. It begins with the words Mizmor La'asaf. So ask the Medrash, how is that an appropriate way to begin a parak that's describing such a terrible tragedy for Klal Yisrael? Wouldn't it be more appropriate to begin a parak such as that parak with the words Kina La'asaf, lamentation, right? Bechi La'asaf, the tears of Asaf. But why Mizmor La'asaf? Mizmor implies a time of song. What is there to sing about? And the Medrash answers with a mashal. Brings a mashal of a king, who had a son who was marrying, and the king had his workers build a beautiful, magnificent, a chuppah for his son. But in the period of his engagement, the son rebelled terribly against his father. And out of anger, the king went and he tore the chuppah to shreds. A teacher of this prince, of the king's son, saw what was going on, and he took out his musical instruments and he walked through the streets singing about this act of the king. And those who were witnessing this looked at this teacher and as if he was crazy. What are you singing about? The king just ripped his son's chuppah to shreds and you're walking around and you're singing? And the teacher answered the following. He says, I'm singing about the fact that the king poured his wrath out at the chuppah, but he did not pour his anger out at his son. So too, Kodesh Baruch Hu poured his anger out at not at Klal Yisrael, but rather at the stones and the beams of the Beis HaMikdash. So the question is, though, the parak then goes on to talk about the actual destruction of Klal Yisrael. The parak goes on to say, "Natnu et nivlat avadecha ma'achal la'of hashamayim." That they were fed to the birds. Shafchu damam kamayim sivot Yerushalayim ve'ein kover. That their blood was spilled and there was no burial. Right. So they weren't killed. It wasn't just the Chorban was a destruction of these stones and the beams of the Beis HaMikdash. The people were also killed. So how do we understand this? If the answer is that the Mizmor La'asaf, the singing, is about the destruction only of the Beis HaMikdash, then how do we understand that the people were also killed? I found a beautiful answer in the words of Rav Pincus in his beautiful sefer, powerful sefer, Galus and Nechama, describing the Chorban. And he answers with the following. He brings a mashal, to answer this question. He says, mashal of an artist, who was painting his a painting of his lifetime that he felt was going to bring his fame and fortune. And he found a magnificent view, climbing a mountain. He found a magnificent view of a valley below. And he's painting for weeks. He's painting and pouring all his energy into that work of art. And finally, when he's up to the finishing touches, he asks a friend to come with him so he can, give his criticism of the work. And his friend climbs the mountain with him, and the artist then takes his piece of art, props it on the mountain with the view behind him. And the artist wants to get a good view of his work, so he has to step back, another step back, so he could see the work of art. The artist is so caught up in his artwork that he doesn't realize that he keeps walking backwards and another step or two and he's going to fall off a cliff. The friend is calling out, screaming at him, stop, look what you're doing. And he's so caught up in his artwork, this artist, that he doesn't even hear his friend. And finally, in desperation, the friend does what he has to do to save his friend's life, and he pounces on the picture and tears it to shreds. At that point, the artist's attention was caught, and he pounces on his friend and he says, what did you do? You destroyed my life's work. Whereas the friend responds, look behind you, see what I did. I saved your life. I might have destroyed your piece of art, but I saved your life. So too, Kodesh Baruch Hu saw, the Klal Yisrael were using the Beis HaMikdash as an excuse. They could bring karbanos, so it doesn't matter what they do. And they kept taking a step back away from Kodesh Baruch Hu. And finally, in desperation, even though when the Nevi'im were sent and the Klal Yisrael didn't listen to them, finally, Kodesh Baruch Hu had to pour his wrath out on the Beis HaMikdash. So even though the bodies were killed, Klal Yisrael ended up surviving, because the ikar of Klal Yisrael is in the neshama. Yehi ratzon, that we should be zocha to the ultimate closeness of coming closer to the Kodesh Baruch Hu with the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash b'mheira b'yameinu.